Hello, everyone. Thanks for watching today. Video is for Thursday. Oh, I'm going live on Facebook now. So Thursday, the 17th of August, and today's topic is, I don't get this question too often in this market, but what are the seller's option if a house is not selling? If it's definitely not selling or selling as fast as they want. So I'm going to give you some tips in this market and give you some other tips in markets when it's more of a buyer's market. But, this topic could go on and on and on in discussion. But in this market, especially overall, I tell every agent that has a seller, we could sell your house in probably less than a day if you really want to sell, because it's just about price, area, location, condition of home. There's always going to be someone buying a house. Now, there was markets, and I've been in them different markets over 30 years where you couldn't even give houses away for $1. There's people weren't taking them. It was such a buyer's market. There's too many houses for sale. And then buyers out there, including investors, you can't even imagine that kind of market today, but it will eventually get back to a market like that. But in today's market, we'll just say this: normally it's price, it's condition, its location, and value is to the seller sometimes is out of date, which is just a year ago, 2 years ago. I hear this at least once, twice a week from an listing agent. Well, the seller feels it's worth this because their neighbor sold it for this, or they saw one down the street sold for that last year or the year before, and they think their house is worth this now. Obviously, that is not the case in a lot of areas because the rates have gone up, so people could afford less. So they can't pay a buyer that was looking in that market 2 years ago. Same type of buyer that was maxed out 2 years ago at a 3% rate can't afford that same price at 7% today. So that's why I try to explain to agents, explain to sellers, if it works out, if we could see that houses have been selling in their area for less and they're at this price and they're always going by comparable sales from a year ago or two streets over, that's one of the main reasons. Not that buyers don't want to buy your house at that, just the pool of buyers that have been looking in a certain area, if it's the same type of buyer, because most people, unfortunately, max out the amount that they can afford. Talk to any loan officer and say, hey, out of all of your loans, what percentage of people just max out? How much can I afford? Well, you could afford $250,000 mortgage and you have $50,000 to put down. So they're going to go for a $300,000 house and maximize that. Now, that same buyer in a market can't afford that $300,000 house, and their mortgage amount they're approved for is not at $250,000. It's lower than that. I'm not going to give you the exact number because I don't have those in front of me, but basically on the rate and the payment, all of that. Excuse me. Also, other options you could give sellers is rentals. You could give people lease to own, looking for buyers lease to own. I'm putting my lawyer hat on, my legal hat on. Agents, you cannot help someone draw up a contract for lease to own, rent to own. You got to get attorneys involved for that. There's a lot of legalities in that. So many times agents think they could write it into a contract. It's like, oh, they're going to pay so-and-so dollars per month. I've seen this happen and I've caught it. Buyers are going to pay seller so-and-so dollars per month. This is much is going to go towards principal and interest. And we're going to give them a down payment and try to write it in an addendum, a lease to own agreement. Can't do that, but always call me, Century 21 Home Start agents. Happy to direct you to different attorneys that they could refer to, or always ask them to refer to attorney. But that's another option for people lease to own. Also, just to clear out rental, sometimes people could rent out their property. If you're trying to sell a house that doesn't have much equity in it at all. They're not they need to buy a new house, because there's some people that bought with very little down and they have very little equity. Tell them to talk to a loan officer and see their options in renting their house and what do they need to show that they're rented. Example, interest rates have gone up, so people's payments will be more when buying the house. So imagine, say they have a payment of $2,500 a month, and they could rent out the property for $3,000 a month or $3,500 a month, or let's even go lower. Say their payments $1,000 a month or $1,200 a month. They could rent it out for $1,800 or $2,000 a month, and they don't have much equity in it. So you could give people the option to listen. If you're only selling your house because you can't have that payment, you can't afford two payments, maybe you're in a market where there's lots of rentals and you can rent the house out. But again, talk to your loan officer that explains what they need to prove that they have an active lease on the property and someone's going to be making it, and they're going to get income from it. It's very possible that they can do that, but you got to talk to a loan officer. You can't just make that judgment, because they have to look at all their other incomes and debts and all of that. So ultimately, of course, you want to sell their house. They don't have to worry about it, but you never know. It might be a income generating. Again, if they don't need the income or the equity to buy a new house, maybe they have money saved, or just because, again, we're going to come across this. I promise you, I know this for a fact, we're going to come across this as the next couple of years go on. People bought over the last year, 2 years, 3 years, bought at a higher amount. They paid $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 over asking price. And some of those houses, if they need to sell in the next couple of years, are not going to be valued at what they paid for it. They're going to be valued back at what the amount was, what the list price was. And they're going to have negative equity. They're going to have very little or no equity. They're going to come across people like this. And the other options are, if you do have somebody, when you get to that point and they have no equity in the property, very little equity in the or no equity or negative equity in the property, after they pay you your fees and their title fees and all the closing costs, transfer tax, all of that, some of these people might have to do a short sale. We might be going back into short sales. I feel this is going to start happening in the next couple of years. There's because the people that bought over the last few years didn't think that they had to move. Maybe their job's making a move, maybe their family situation, maybe their income situation, maybe for whatever reason, they have to move. And now the value didn't go up. And if someone you had bought FHA with 3.5% down or 5% down, that example, 5% down, if they even sold the property at the same value that they bought it for, 6% in closing or in 6% in just real estate commissions, wipes away any down payment they put on the property, and then all the rest of their closing costs and things that they have to do, throw away any equity that they made, the little equity that comes out the first year or 2 or 3 in the payment. So do you follow me? If someone buys a house and within a couple years tries to sell that and it's worth the same amount or less, and right after they pay, when they throw in the realtor and the other fees, it goes down to zero equity, and that's in a good scenario there. So you were going to see some of this because there's a percentage of people that just thought they were buying this house, it's going to be long-term investment. They thought they're going to be there for a long time, and they're not. Again, go back to seeing if they could make it a rental, lease to own, short sale. And then worst case, if someone really has to move, they just had something tragic happen to in their family or financially, then they might have to, the foreclosure option is going to be there. But you can't, as a realtor, we're not attorneys, we can't give people foreclosure advice and things that are happen, or legal advice, but you can point them in the right direction if they need that, because it's going to happen. I know that it's history repeating itself a lot. I saw this from in 2003, 4, 5, 6 that turned into 2008. Now, please, I will tell you this: what happened in 2008 in the economy, in the mortgage industry, I'm not. I don't have a crystal ball, and I don't. CNN is not calling me for my opinion, but I know that it's not even close, or we're to where how bad it was with people getting mortgages that shouldn't have got mortgages, people the flip around in the market of people buying homes and not buying homes. We don't see that. With just the inventory is so low, it's not going to happen overnight like it did in 2008, where all of a sudden overnight there was a plethora of homes, over saturation of because people had just dumped their homes. And most of those, I want to say this is the reason why. Okay, I'm giving my disclaimer, my interpretation of what I saw, because I was in the middle of the mortgage, title, and real estate business in 2003, 4, 5, 6. I saw it was investment properties. I haven't been able to find it to clarify what I'm about to say, but I saw so many people. We had so many clients in real estate and in on the real estate side and in the mortgage side, of people buying investment properties that shouldn't have been buying investment properties. Little money down, no money down, no doc investment properties, or very little stated programs for investment properties. And we saw people that should not have bought homes and were giving, there was no limit at one point of how many different investment properties somebody could own. And I know many clients at the time, through our realtors and mortgage clients at the time, that when the market turned, they just let them all go. So I think a very big portion of the foreclosures and problem 2008 and 9 in the mortgage industry is non-owner occupied mortgages, second homes, vacation homes, third homes. I hate people own three homes. We had, and people buying houses, investors buying houses with loans on every single one of them. Today, a lot of investors, have been cash. So there's not going to be that fallout. They might lose some money, but they bought them cash. And the requirements of investors over the last few years or more to buy homes and have a mortgage on it, there was, you had to put 10, 15, 20% or more down. You had to have great credit. That they were the banks and mortgage companies really scrutinized investors and made sure everything was as best and clean as possible. So it's very hard to be an investor and get a mortgage on the property because of all the hoops you had to jump through. So to make those people more secure, now they're going to be fallout for a little bit of that if they foreclose on some of those properties. Yes, if the economy turns a little bit more and rental rates, but the rental rates have gone up so much and the economy hasn't come down too much where people could afford these rental prices. There hasn't been that much of a fallout in the investor side of things. I haven't heard anybody saying that there's investors dumping their properties because they can't, the people renting the houses are not paying their rent. In 2008, that was all across the board. People were just not paying rent, and there's major problems, and that's why there was a lot of foreclosures. Now, sorry, went off on a long tangent there on not selling, but I wanted to explain a little backstory of why I have these opinions. So, but back to the topic. Things to give to your sellers, or how to help your sellers, is that really keep an eye on the market of what's coming and going. even when you have the listing. I have many agents that sometimes after a month or 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, and something is not selling, said, well, what's been selling since you've listed it? And sometimes they go, well, I haven't watched it. I'm like, why haven't you watched what's going on the market? I want to know how many properties have come on the market in this price range, in this area since you've listed, how many have sold, how many are pending, how many are expired, where are we at all that? You just can't get to the point like, hey, you got to do a little research on it. And usually a lot of the cases are when we go back, see some other properties have gone on the market and sold before this property, our property is, and they've gone up for lower and sold for lower. And the agent didn't even realize that. So remember, the last thing I'll remember, just when you're keeping this in mind when you're watching your listings and they stick on the market, is really watch the market, because other listings are using your listing as a benchmark. So hypothetically, you're listed at $299 and they see you've been on the market just throughout 180 days at $299, and now a new listing comes up on the market down the street or on the other street from you. What do you think they're saying in that listing presentation? They're saying, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, this property is at $299. It's been sitting for 180 days. We can't list it at $289 or $99.9. We should list it at $279.9, and people will see your house is just as good or better than this house, and it's been sitting. And then the other buyer's gonna see value. You're like, wow, this house is at $299. Your house is just as good or better. It's $279. You'll probably get some offers right away. And they're using your overpriced listing to get theirs sold. That happens a lot if you just watch. So that's where I'll leave it at today. I'm sorry I went off on a tangent there. But if you want to talk more about this, I almost once a day, at least once a day, I'm on the phone, at least for a short period of time, with an agent to give them some advice and trying to get some comps. Actually, I have 2 to do tonight to try to help some agents out, to try to give them my opinion on where the value should be, what's been happening. I love doing that when I have the time. And also to our Century 21 Homestar agents, Debbie in our office is excellent at it, and also has an appraiser's license. So she really knows comps really well. So if you need help with that, she has that appraisal background to help too. That's it. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for watching. Sorry about the late video today. And remember, reach out if you need anything. Have a good one. Bye-bye.